Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Today, we are going to be talking all things about building engagement with decolonising inside a pandemic university. Now, quite a big topic, and I'm not going to be doing that on my own. So just to introduce myself, I'm Mark Prescott. I'm Associate Professor, and I also work in the Decolonising DMU team as a fair outcomes champion. To try and unpack what we are going to be discussing a little bit further, I'm going to be joined with some of my team members. So if I can start first of all, Charmaine, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi everyone, I'm Charmaine Marufu and I am an ambassador on the project and I work on the student strand with Mark, working with the students and engaging with students on the project.
Thank you, Charmaine. Zara?
Hi, I'm a third year law student and I'm also the student strand frontrunner at Decolonising DMU.
Thank you. Richard, say hello.
Hello, my name is Richard Hall, and my responsibility on the project is for the evaluation of the project, but also for looking at the institution's research environment.
Thank you. Liam, say hello.
Hi everyone, my name is Liam Sutton and I'm another of the Student Strand ambassadors supporting events.
Excellent. And last but by no means least, we have Samaya.
Hi everyone, I'm Samaya Luna and I'm a PhD student currently in my second year, and I'm also a Decolonising DMU Fair Outcomes champion for the library work stream of the project.
Excellent, excellent. So we've got a number of people, and as you can see, most people wear two hats. So they're either a student or they're doing some work within the university as well as working on the project Decolonising DMU. So in terms of what we're talking about today, we're talking about trying to change an organisation, changes within De Montfort University. And then within the last 12 months, we've then had to deal with a rather significant change in terms of COVID. And that's really what today we're going to be talking about. How has it affected us? Has it been a total thumbs up? Has it been a total nightmare? How have we sort of adapted and changed to try and ensure that we are really going about things? But before we go into that, first question that's really open to anybody. And the first question is really, how has COVID affected you personally?
Silence, innit? Charmaine.
For me, so COVID really came towards the end of my third year. So yeah, at the back end of last year. So for me, first of all, I got ill just before I had to hand in my dissertations and my final assignments. So that meant that I had to defer a lot of my assignments and actually finish in August rather than July. So it did have significant impact on my on the back end of my last year. And we had literally just come back from a strike. So we were meant to go back into teaching and kind of catch up on the last weeks of teaching before uni ended. So it really impacted the last couple of months of uni basically. And some of the things that I was meant to learn in person, I never got the chance to do that, and everything got moved online. And because there was still an adapting period, I feel like it really kind of lessened my uni experience in my third year. That's what I would say.
Wow. So you've had this journey of actually finishing as an undergraduate student and then being employed at the university as an ambassador, and actually you found that the last few months has been a total change for you. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. So that's really important to sort of think about in the context. Has it been similar or different for you, Zara?
Yeah, a similar situation. I was in my second year, half through my second year, when COVID all started. And it was very difficult because it was exam season at that time. We were weeks away from doing in-person exams and everything changed very, very quickly. And then going into third year, that was just a whole different ball game in itself. On top of it being final year and it being the highest percentage of my overall degree grade, as well as thinking about what to do afterwards and jobs, it kind of affected all kind of areas of it, which was difficult and was definitely an adjustment to consider.
So you're a second year student, and at the at the business end, if you like, of the year, you're suddenly having to adapt. Okay.
Yeah.
If I can hear from you next, Liam. So I know that you were you a second year student as well?
Yeah, I do the same course as Zara. So I had quite practical heavy subjects as well. So I was kind of like a few weeks away from doing in-person stuff on like on-site facilities, and it was all kind of switched up because we went into lockdown. So we had to change how we were being assessed, which was quite full on. And then that's kind of continued into like this year as well. So
obviously, as part of this learning and teaching sort of conference, we can obviously see here that front and center of everything we do, and there was a massive sort of shift there. So just from a lecturer as well as a student perspective, so Maya, did anything sort of stick out for you sort of personally?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, I mean, it's been really exhausting because I've had caring responsibilities with children, trying to navigate homeschooling, multiple identities. I mean, I feel like at points I was, especially when the kids are at home, I'm being a dinner lady, mediator, referee, trying to get my work done. And what I found really, I think it was difficult for me to comprehend was just how much my productivity had declined, and it wasn't any fault of my own. So things that I would normally get done, within a few days were taking me weeks, and it was just burnout, to be honest. So yeah, they're the sort of things I've had to really try and make myself realize that it's okay to not be on the same level of productivity as before.
So this element of wearing many hats, or almost being the Swiss Army knife, has actually made you take a step back and just think, look, this is what great looks like, and it might be slightly different to pre-pandemic.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. And Richard, I'd love to hear from you.
I guess some of it echoes what Samaya has just said. At the start of this, I was partway through writing a book, which subsequently got put on hold for 6 months because I hadn't got the energy, I hadn't got the headspace, you're coping with something else whilst trying to deal with kind of, I guess, the kind of trauma of it. And that trauma for me was compounded because at the start I was coming to the end of 18 months of caring for my grandmother, passed with COVID, but passed in kind of April, so trying to process that as well, whilst also there are expectations that you'll still be at work and still performing, as Samaya has said, and an expectation around productivity, which is just, it's impossible, you just can't engage with it because of the kind of you're trying to deal with such a traumatic situation, and you can't see people that you love, and you can't hold people and do all of that. And all of a sudden, I mean, I don't have the same as kind of Samaya. I'm not being a referee or whatever, but or a dinner lady, but you do have those other expectations all of a sudden are really amplified. So a lot of confusion, a lot of trauma, a lot of missing people, all of that kind of thing.
I'm with you. So really sort of heightened emotions, where some of the things that you take for granted, but also some of the things that you love, are sort of kept at more than arm's length, more than the 2 meter length away. So yeah, a lot of kind of areas and sort of issues there. So just before we go into the project, I just wanted to ask one more question just around that. And it's something that may become a bit of a theme as we go through this. We've talked about change, and we've talked about how change is uncertain, unknown unknowns. And, we're looking to lead ourselves, our families, our peers, our students. How do you keep your cup full? How do you almost get that bounce back ability, or that resilience? I found that for me, what I've started to do now is I get lost much more in my music. You know, I've got certain tunes that, you know, are my go-to if I'm feeling just a bit low, or, you know, if things don't go well. And so I found that certainly my escape in music has sort of worked. So in terms of sort of bounce back ability, what is there anything that you've done, or anything that, you know, speaking with students you've heard that they've done that's sort of really helped? So if I can ask Charmaine again, is there anything you'd like to pitch in with?
Yeah, I think for me, I've had to find different things at different points. You know, I think one of them, I'd say sometimes cooking and actually baking, because I really, really enjoyed that. And trying to be creative outside of work as well, trying to find things that I enjoy, watching movies. And I think one really, really important one for me has been actually the community, the people around me, my friends, actually having conversations, meaningful conversations with people. As much as we're not able to see each other, one thing I've realized is that I'm having deeper conversations with my friends and my family. And that has really helped me in times when I'm like, I'm done, I'm over this. I just want to give up. You know, speaking to people that understand you, speaking to people that care about you. I think that has helped me bounce back in times when I really was feeling drained, or I really was starting to feel tired or wanting to give up.
So put the apron on, lose yourself in the kitchen, and then actually sort of remember yourself and remember who you are with people who root for you and you root for them in terms of community. So there are two real big things there. Brilliant. Okay, Zara, anything from you in terms of bounce back ability?
I mean, similar to yourself and Charmaine, music is something that I've also found I've gotten has been a huge part of being able to just keep going with every day. It's something to obviously lose yourself in, as you said. I play the guitar, so just doing that for a little bit really helps. As well, like things like when I get the chance to like read a book, especially like fiction books, so you can like go into some kind of different headspace. But I think like one of the main things is just finding structure in everyday life, because that's the thing I feel like was taken away the most with COVID, not having a set routine, a set structure. So for me, I start every single day. I make sure as soon as I wake up, I give myself about 15 minutes to stop being groggy, and then I make my bed and I get up and I do what I need to do. And I just find like small things like making your bed, or just like I don't know, doing a skincare routine or something like that in the morning. It just kind of starts your day and makes you feel like, okay, I've got this, and you can carry on and get what you need to do done.
Wow, so a little bit of maybe me time at the beginning of the day before you get hounded, harangued. You know,
Yeah.
You've got a little bit of space that's you. I like that. Liam, anything from your perspective?
Yeah, so going off the back of what like Zara was saying about how I've had kind of a lack of structure because you haven't got like physical uni or anything, that kind of setting yourself smaller goals rather than like, oh, by midnight tonight I want to have done this, this, and this. Say rather than like an hour I want to have done this, and that gives you those little goals to just kind of achieve throughout the day, and it's always giving you a drive to do one thing at a time. And then as well as that, just self-care, really, like mindfulness as well, I think is really important.
So that self-care, and also that, listen, one step at a time, you know, make the bed, then take the shower, then play a tune, and that self-care. No, it's important, but it's something that I'm sure we'll come on to when we look at the experience of learning with students and also with teachers. Samaya, you've heard a little bit. Anything that's new and different, or do you sort of concur with a lot of what's been said?
I'm not going to lie, at the beginning of the pandemic, I bought so many books, so many, enough to fill a bookshelf, and I haven't read any of them. I'm just sitting there gathering dust. I haven't done any of that. What I have found has been really, really good is I've used this opportunity to really try and, like Charmaine was saying, get into the cooking side and actually just trying out traditional recipes that I've never had the time for before. So I'd ring my mom or be like, how do I do this? Or, you know, I've never tried this before, but I like the taste, but I want to learn how to make it instead of always asking you. So it's been a really good opportunity. And another thing which has really helped me is watching cleaning videos on TikTok. They've been really, really relaxing. And I found that, you know, it's happy home, happy mind, because when you're at home all the time and you're working from home and you want things organized, these sort of things have really helped me. I mean, just sort of declutter my own mind. I feel that that's kind of helped me feel less anxious, and also just having really supportive colleagues around me who understand my situation and they're full of empathy. So it's good to have, colleagues and friends that you can talk to as well whenever you're feeling down.
Okay. So you've actually found that, you know what, just maybe taking some time in things that you haven't had time before in terms of maybe decluttering has helped. Well, I'm really glad that you can't actually see my desk at the moment. Maybe I need to watch some of those decluttering videos. But final person on this is Richard. So again, Richard, how do you work on your bounce back ability?
I guess I kind of don't. I'd rather, you know, I'm an old man, Mark. You know this, and part of it is that, you know, I'm long enough in the tooth and been through enough to kind of accept myself for the position I'm in any one moment. So yeah, when was it yesterday morning? I was really flat, you know, but I accept why I'm flat, you know, and accept that it wasn't like that the day before, and it may not be like that in the afternoon or today, you know, and it isn't. And, you know, to try and treat myself, as Liam sort of mentioned, self-care, to try, you know, to find ways just to be kind of kind to myself in that moment. So that's one thing. The other thing, of course, as Samaya knows, is that Saturday morning is new sponge scourer morning, and so I treat myself to a new sponge scourer and get on with some lovely washing up.
Oh, bring it on. Bring it on. We've got a couple of clean freaks. It's brilliant. It's good to know. But again, you mentioned about, Richard, maybe that checking in, and it might not be this is happening to me, therefore here's a solution, but it's more of that reflection of look, this is happening to me. It's maybe a little bit different. And I think we've also had a lot of time for that reflection and other things. So just based on that sort of topic of maybe reflection, what I wanted to do now is just move across to the project that we've all sort of linked. You know, the one thing that I think links us all together is Decolonising DMU, and in its biggest form, you know, we're trying to build an anti-racist university. Now, there's obviously no book we can go to. There's obviously no university that we can just Google and, you know, cut and paste what they're doing. So in many respects, we're learning, we're evaluating, we're testing, and we're sharing. One of the questions that I really wanted to ask and speak to you guys about, and it's really maybe one of the areas, we're obviously now moving more online. And I know that some of you guys that work as students, you've been on the project for almost a year, and yet we've not been in the same room physically at all. You know, team meetings are virtual, yeah, as we're pretty much on the screen right now. I just wanted to get some thoughts about the online move and how that online move may have affected Decolonising DMU and the activities, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. So the online move. Any thoughts, Charmaine?
Yeah, it's been interesting to move online. So I was actually working on the project last year as well as a fund runner. And one of the things that I was able to be a part of and to actually launch last year was our events, with students, we started with Unapologetically BAME. And, you know, for the first couple of events we were able to meet, we used to meet in the gallery. That was one of our favorite spaces to meet and to speak and to have conversations with students. And definitely moving online was more difficult, because for those events, even to invite people, we could go in the middle of campus and just tell people about the project, tell people about the event, and speak to them. So you were able, it's not just about the people you have on a mailing list or the people that you know from someone. You can literally speak to any student. You're able to go into different spaces, even if it's just going into the FU to speak to them. So it was definitely more difficult to move online, because now we had to find ways of, you know, we there was kind of a limit, because at first our reach is only those we have on our mailing list, or those we know that our partners or some of the people that we know have in their mailing list. So actually thinking about ways on how we can reach out to more students, we've had to find ways to, you know, really try and create links to reach other students, and also just trying to see how we can adapt these conversations that we were having on in person online, where people, you know, might, you know, you can just hide away from your camera. How do we create that safe space for people to have the conversations that, you know, maybe that are quite difficult sometimes, that can be quite emotional, you know, speaking about their experiences? How do we create that safe space online for people to feel comfortable to be able to unmute their mic and to share their stories and experiences? So I think it's definitely been challenging, and had to adapt, because you know, I think we've had to really adapt on how do we take what was good in person and move that online. And something that we have seen with the move online as well is that they has been, even though we've had lower engagement in terms of numbers, the conversations have been deeper. And so yeah, that was one of the things that we even had to adjust as a team. That are we looking for numbers? How do we adjust from wanting to see high numbers of students or at our events to appreciating the value of the conversations that we are having, the deeper conversations, and how can we bring that out to a wider audience? So yeah, those are just some of the challenges and some of the thoughts around moving online.
So that online, that engagement, but also you've spoken about how do we create an environment that is still engaging, is still actually empathetic where need be, but at the same time looking for change and looking for action. How do you kind of do that with a click this link? That's been one of the big things for yourself. Wow. Okay. So just sort of related to that then. So Zara, you came to the project during COVID, so all that you've really known is sort of you know, COVID sort of activities, you know. The question really is, how's the online move? How's it affected you in the project?
I mean, I think there's positives and negatives to it being online. Like Charmaine said, engagement is tricky. Figuring out how to do that with projects that I'm doing and working with students. It's hard to get people involved in things that are outside of their degree subject, especially because that's something everybody now is trying to just do what they can and do the things that are at the top of their list. And sometimes things that are outside of their degree that's going to get them the grades aren't things that people want to prioritize. So that's different and very difficult. But I also think it's been interesting, because as much as it's been hard to not be able to see people and go onto campus to be like, hey, come to this, or like join this event we're doing, I feel like, as from a student perspective, I feel like the spaces are more safe in a way, because people are in the comfort of their own homes, in their own rooms. And I feel like, me personally, going to events, I have been more likely to speak, more likely to say something, rather than being in these rooms full of so many people. And I think that I've noticed that with a lot of people who have like come to events or decided to join or decided to be involved, that people are speaking more. And like Charmaine said, it's fewer numbers, but the conversations are so much deeper than they would have been in person. But yeah, it's definitely not what I would have expected, like especially being joining the front runner role. Like obviously I was looking forward to doing so many things, but still managing to get things done and do things that actually have an impact has been a challenge. But yeah, great.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting. You've mentioned safe spaces, and I think that's something really to sort of consider as a lecturer, that there are certain times where you may be in a room, you may have set everything up, but that person, there's a barrier there, and that barrier is actually the social situation. Whereas somebody who's in the comfort of their own home, and they feel that there's more of a connection, may actually express more. So in many ways, would we have got that pre-COVID? It's a big issue, isn't it? It's a big issue. Can I come to you, Richard? Do you want to build on that a little bit more, Richard?
I think the thing about space is fundamental, isn't it? I mean, I think it was raised in our previous work on freedom to achieve, that when we analysed what some students and staff had kind of said around I guess the kind of spaces in the institution that were open to them, and the very fact that institutions, we see this with schools, for instance, as well, that some institutions appear closed to certain bodies. Sarah Ahmed, in her work on being included and following on from that, her later work, speaks about this all the time in terms of who can pass through institutions and who can't, who is given a space to voice and who isn't. And if you're moving online, where everything is mediated by this screen, right? So all of a sudden you have a sense of, oh, is that yet another barrier then? So I think within that, I'm really taken by Zara's point about the depth of conversations and the depth of relationships and how we relate, and whether it is possible for us in a mix of online and face-to-face to I guess to create openings where the depth of those conversations, the content and the form of those conversations can be opened out to a wider range of people, really. And within that, I think the form that they take is really important. So when Charmaine's talking about the first unapologetically BAME meetings that happened in a space that was conducive to being in a circle where power was dissolved, or we were trying to, when it wasn't dissolved, right, but where we were trying to equalize stuff, is really important. And I think we need an open set of institutional conversations about what those spaces look like, and what safety looks like and feels like, and what it looks and feels like in relation to privilege and power. And I don't think that those are happening in many mainstream spaces in society. They will be happening in indigenous spaces and in feminist collectives and all over. But I think that we might learn from those around how we construct the online and the physical.
So this move to physical has made a massive change, hasn't it? This move. And I think one thing that you're talking about there is when we come onto this project, we always have this thought about, can every student see themselves in the university? And I think this comes back to the point that's been made in several different ways, that actually there's certain assumptions that are made when you are in a structure that's physical, that's been built maybe 100 years ago, and maybe it's been built with the students from, say, 10 years ago in mind. When we sort of almost try and future-proof what we're doing, even just speaking to students, you may get an element of them seeing themselves. They're on the screen, their face is on the screen, their background is on the screen, their room is on the screen, and suddenly that flips it around, which is an interesting point, which then may lead to the I feel more comfortable expressing myself and bringing my whole self to the particular discussion, debate, or whatever it may be. So thank you for sort of sharing that. So Maya, is this something you want to speak about?
Yeah, I mean, basically what everyone's been saying, and I think being online has given me, as a PhD student, it's given me the opportunity to reach more diverse audiences, like beyond my own institution, when it comes to disseminating my research. And I think for me, the positive I found in it is COVID's kind of created new ways of bringing us all together, which might not have been possible for me personally, because if I had to present face to face at other institutions, I'd have things, you know, outside my circumstances, things like childcare and just even my own anxiety, you know, the lack of confidence to really discuss my research and present my research face to face. So for me, it's been a good way to sort of not just be behind the screen, because I act like I'm talking to myself, and it's a safe space for me as well, kind of back to what Zara was saying, because I feel more comfortable talking about sensitive issues behind the screen. I'm more open, and the feedback has also been it's been really positive, and it's really reassuring, and it kind of gives me the strength to continue my work. But there has been a lot of changes, because, you know, even though it's been really good in that sense, the way I do my research ethics, for example, it's totally changed now, because now everything's moved online. I can't do any face-to-face interviews. So things like recruiting participants is taking me a lot longer than I would have probably predicted if I could do it face-to-face, because it's about building those relationships which take more time in an online environment.
So you've been able to get into places that you probably wouldn't have got pre-COVID, and actually that has meant that you have had the opportunity to share and actually listen and learn from more people, which can only be a good thing. However, you're also saying actually the way I sometimes go about and do my research has had to change as well. So there are some sort of positives. So Liam, I'd like to just sort of ask you, and just moving on, it's building on that really. Sumaya's talking about maybe having greater accessibility because we're moving more online. And I know that as part of the project, we not only speak to people within the university, speak to people within higher education in the UK, but we also try and get our students and even our staff to have more of a global perspective to see where things are happening. You've been involved in some activity where we've had some global reach with Georgia College. Is it worth sort of sharing and reflecting on whether that's been a benefit because of the COVID situation?
I mean, yeah, it's definitely been a benefit, because we often think about our circumstances in England, and we think that, like, you know, sometimes we have completely different experiences to that of like countries thousands of miles away. But when we've had conversations with people at like Georgia University, they've kind of expressed themselves in a way that makes us think, well, we're all kind of in this same boat, that although politically, like, we are two completely different nations, we do have similar experiences with COVID and how everything's moved online, and that we all kind of thrive in different ways, and that kind of COVID's kind of stripped that choice of how we do thrive, because some people are better online and some people are better in person. And I know that I'm a lot better in person because I know, like, right now that I can see myself on the screen, and I know that a lot of my other friends do have like self-image issues, and so I sometimes do spend a lot of my time looking at myself on the screen because I'm just worried about how I look, which seems really vain, but it's just like a genuine anxiety kind of thing. And so I think when we have spoken to people in different countries, we do see how we do have that kind of bridge that joins us together, that we do share the same issues when it came to COVID and moving online.
Yeah, and I suppose moving online, you know, talking to somebody, you know, just in down the road in Gateway versus talking to somebody in Georgia, you know, we're using exactly the same platform. So actually that effort is a lot less, which works. But Charmaine, if I could just ask you to talk a little bit more about you know, with online, we've done a lot more online events, and those events have been a lot more international. Just talk us through some of the things around sort of Georgia, because many people would suggest that this wouldn't have happened as well if the COVID situation hadn't come about.
Yeah, I think it's been great. Definitely the pandemic was a great opportunity to build on our work with Georgia. Because I think it started, I think, just weeks or probably a week or two before COVID hit. That's when we had our first initial event, when we used Zoom and we didn't even know what Zoom was. And I remember trying to figure it out. But I think it's been a real great opportunity to be able to speak to the students and the staff in Georgia. And I think it's really giving our students and everyone involved that global perspective. We've really it's really helped our students see where the differences are, in between our two nations, the US and the UK, but also to see where our similarities are, like Liam has mentioned. And it's also given our students an opportunity to present and to develop some skills that they wouldn't have otherwise had, like presenting in front of a global audience, which is something that I think is just really great. Because as part of the event, so one of the things that I've had to do is, like, we speak about Black History Month in October. We led, talking about UK Black History Month, so doing research to that and presenting that to the Georgia audience and having discussions around that. But it's been great to develop those kind of skills and those connections, and just to network as well with the students and the staff from Georgia. And I know from the events that some of our students have now become interested in, when COVID is all over, doing semesters abroad or a year abroad to really broaden their experiences. And something else that I've really enjoyed about the conversation is just, something I've noticed with every conversation that we've had is that it's something great to look forward to every month, because I know at the end of every conversation, we always find ways to find the positive in the midst of all the chaos that's going on. Because something that we really prioritized with the events was ensuring that we talk about well-being and how to maintain our well-being in this at this time. And I know that we had a member of staff from the DMU well team, and Georgia also had a staff from their well-being team, and that's been really helpful for our students, to get different tips on how to keep going, to how they can help themselves in this pandemic. And it's been really, really helpful. And for me myself, I've loved the events, and it's something that I think, if I could say I want to take something forward, if we were ever to go back to normal, is definitely those online connections with students from global nations. So yeah, that's
Okay. Interesting perspective there that you're talking about, getting perspectives from overseas that can help almost ground what we're doing here, and the fact that you were talking about resilience and getting speakers in from not just the US but actually our well-being team here and healthy DMU, to ensure that happens. Just got Anima has actually just posted that getting perspectives from different cultures and cultures is very, very interesting. It allows us to learn from each other and find solutions collectively. Yeah, it's a great point, because we are now thinking global, but I think one of the real challenges of decolonizing, one of the real things that we're looking to try and do, is how do we really cement our work within the university? We want to make sure that students and staff see themselves in the university and really trying to build that anti-racist university. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to ask you about some of the activities, maybe explicitly, that you've been working on as a team. So and how that maybe has gone on, maybe in spite of COVID and other things. So if I can start with Zara, I know that you've been working a little bit on societies and thinking about how decolonisation may look with some of our student union societies. Is it worth just spending just a little bit of time just talking about what it is you're trying to do and where you're at with that?
Yeah, sure. So at the start of my Frontrunners internship, I wanted to create a kind of workshop to look at inclusivity and representation. And this is starting off by looking at student union societies. That is our first kind of goal. But we've started this, we started looking at how, but basically we started noticing how different people respond differently to different environments, and how your culture and how your background and where you're from and how you're brought up can affect the actions and decisions that you make. So for example, personally, when I first came to uni in first year, I wanted to join societies because I wanted to do something outside of my degree, and I didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't feel like there was a place for me. I didn't feel like there was something that I could be a part of. So we wanted to make sure that the people who are heading societies and in the boards of them recognize that in order to make people feel safe in these spaces and feel like they can join these places and belong there, it needs to be representative and inclusive of all. So we've set out these workshops, and we're actually doing our first practice run of it today, this afternoon. So that's been interesting to see how people want to engage in that. I think the main thing from it is that people don't always often think about these little things. They just think, oh, this is a place we want to have fun. So to start the conversation and start discussions about that, especially about identity and not just your own, but about others, that's the main takeaway from it.
Okay, so actually looking at some of the key areas where students will gain belonging
Yes.
in terms of the societies. What you're basically doing is you're basically giving a chance to think about maybe some of the rituals, the customs, the initiations, the norms, and actually going, do you know what? Are you talking to the vast majority of students? And bear in mind DMU, let's not forget our cohort here. The cohort at DMU, we have a black and minority ethnic population that is larger than the UK right now, and definitely larger than most HE institutions. So yeah, that conscious decision to work and again create that space for people to almost look at what they're doing, and rather than we did this last year, we're just going to do it again, actually giving them that space to do that is great. And let's hope that pilot goes well this week, and we can see more from it. Liam, I just wanted to ask you, in terms of your work on the project, in terms of something that hasn't been at DMU in terms of awareness of things, maybe the last couple of years, that is coming now front and center. I know you've been working on a particular project.
Yeah, so as a Romani student, I've kind of noticed that there's not a lot of representation, and it's not just at DMU, it's like across Europe really, and that because of like my community are quite tight knit. We do like talk to each other from, like, I talk to my Romani friends that are in Europe, they're in America, and one thing that we've all noticed is that kind of a lot of universities will have quite a lack of knowledge of us and use phrases that we don't like to describe us on registration forms, and so the reason why we find a lot of universities don't have these high numbers of Romani students is not that they're not actually there, is that they're not self-identifying on forms as what the university describes them as, which is usually the word gypsy, and we don't, I would never self-identify as that, and I don't know a single Romani person that would. And so I kind of came at the forefront of the Roma project, which is something that we've kind of started up in DDMU now, and that's all about empowering the Romani voice and kind of having a kind of mediation between the community and higher education, so that we can, make students like myself feel a lot more comfortable at university, and that it is a safe space for them, because throughout history, higher education has not been something that we've had access to. And so I'm very fortunate to have had the position that I've got now to now empower students that will come after me.
And I think this really epitomizes, you know, what Decolonising DMU and the work that we're trying to do talks about. You've been able to bring something that, you know, is deeply affecting you, and actually you've been able to suggest that, you know what, I think the university is missing something here. You know, the upside for the university is there's a plethora of fantastic potential students that are not seeing either higher education or DMU as a viable route, and nobody wins there. Nobody wins there, and I think, you know, certainly one of the things that COVID has probably put a spotlight on is that there's a phrase that goes around, isn't there? And the phrase is, "We're all in the same boat." You know, and you know, we're in COVID together. We're all in the same boat. When actually some of us are in yachts, yeah, some of us are in dinghies, and some of us are absolutely trying to do doggy paddle to stay afloat. And I think one thing I wanted just to discuss and maybe bring in Richard and Samaya is how has the world of research been affected maybe by COVID? Have there been certain trends or certain events that have helped to shape your research, change your research, guide your research? I'll open that out first of all to Richard.
It's been, I think, our work on research. I mean, it kind of happens to kind of, I guess, it's happening at the same time that the institution is considering its ref submission. So, you know, we're making that submission. So we're able to kind of engage with stuff that has come out of the environment work, the broader kind of research environment work that is related to, I guess, impact knowledge transfer, knowledge exchange. It's also kind of related to the kind of outputs, things that people are writing, project work, that kind of thing. We're able to kind of interrogate that against kind of data. We're able to interrogate that against the kind of the structures, cultures, and practices within research that really kind of move, I guess, that are able to move this agenda forward. And we've not really done that before because much of the work is focused on undergraduate awarding gap or attainment. You know, and we haven't necessarily been able to connect with that really rich vein of work that's come out, say, from Leading Roots about the pipeline. You know, why is it that so few Black and of colour students are kind of coming through to do PGR work, and we see it reflected in some of the reports from last summer about the lack of Black or of colour PIs on COVID related research. You know, so it's really timely. There's a really timely thing. I think our work, certainly in terms of research centres and institutes, has been, I think I'm coming back to that kind of point that Zara raised about the depth of relationships and conversations. I mean, I've worked at DMU, you know, for forever, since 2002, and I've got quite a lot of contacts. So there's quite a lot I can build on those, even in this kind of situation, to go work with research institutes and centres to ask, well, what work are you doing that might tangentially be related to this? And it's opened up a really rich set of timely conversations around, for instance, decolonising theory, decolonising methods. Who has a voice in that? What are our faculty research ethics committees? What are they doing around kind of voice and around inclusivity and around working, for instance, with marginalised communities, either in Leicester or in the global south or wherever they may be? So I think that we've got a kind of I guess a confluence of moments really in which we've been able to kind of work and push agendas, and part of that is related to that the tragedy that is the killing of George Floyd as well. That actually this is for all sorts of horrendous reasons. This is, you know, this becomes more live, and I think we're able to kind of push beyond that into a space where people do want to kind of research around this and engage in scholarly activity that might also be bringing that research back into the classroom in a co-created way, in a participative way with students, you know. And I think Samaya's work kind of pivots around that as well, I think.
All right, so Samaya, if I can ask you to add to that.
Yeah, so I mean, as part as part of my work within the library work stream and with my PhD research and my work role as well, I'm able to organize workshops which encourage staff to reflect on their own behavior, because that's the thing. So many staff members will say, okay, how do I decolonize? Where do I begin from? And it is so much more than just going beyond, you know, diversifying your reading list. It's about reflecting on your own behavior. And my research is all about, you know, race and language. And one of the ways I get staff to do that is to just reflect on how they use language as a mechanism to sort of you know, put forward these unconscious behaviors. So the workshops have given me the opportunity to even give staff like practical like examples of things like linguistic microaggressions, which have been really because a lot of staff don't really perceive that their words and their language use result in harmful behavior. So in that sense, it's been good. And as Richard was saying, just offering practical suggestions for staff has been a really good way to sort of get them to engage in the project on a wider scale.
Okay. So there seems to be this, you know, there's a lot of talk about decolonising the curriculum in HE right now, and it seems to be that what we've done with our project is we've seen that is merely just a small facet of something bigger and something much wider. And if I'm hearing correctly from Richard, what you're saying, you know, what COVID has done is it's magnifying some of those bigger, larger impacts, and has made us maybe being able to have that conversation. And then Sumaya again, you know, actually having lecturers at a time where, let's be honest, you know, we've all had to change, we've all had to adapt, we're being asked to do more with less. I think that is definitely the way of the world at the moment. It's really what you're doing is you're actually getting people to actually reflect and actually get them to think about what they're doing, giving some pointers where necessary, but actually giving them the tools to make their own sort of informed choice. Yeah, a couple of comments that have come in. I mean, Mina's was talking about some of Liam's work, and I must admit, yeah, it sounds really interesting, Liam. The first I've ever heard of this being tackled in an institution, not just HE. So well done. And you know, I must admit as well that, you know, this was a real blind spot for me when I sometimes think about you know, equality, diversity, and inclusion. I need to actually check where I'm at with this. Also, we had a comment just around Sumaya's work. I think that's from Yazira saying, Sumaya, your work sounds fascinating, and in many respects, some people just want to, well, what are the 3 things that I need to do right now? And I think, you know, the role that Sumaya's work's doing, and some of the things that Rich has talked about, is there needs to be that space, first of all, for people to be in the right frame of mind to stop, just to check what they're doing, and actually work out, you know, there is a win-win in all of this. And I think what I'm hearing from everybody here is that the challenge isn't a win-lose situation. The challenge is, if we can get more engaged students, if we can find learning is a way that appeals to everybody more, and actually then as a lecturer, you'll find that, you know, your stimulus, your prompts, you don't have to know all the answers, but you're actually appealing to the students of today, and more importantly, I think the sort of the students of tomorrow. So we've talked through a number of things. We've gone on a bit of a journey in terms of all things decolonising DMU and all things sort of COVID related. What I wanted us to just to think about was, you know, we would never have wished COVID on anybody, but as we sort of look forward in terms of maybe some of the work that we're looking to do, is there anything from COVID and the situation that you would love to sort of see as being more business as usual? I suppose what I'm saying is, what things have you started to do during COVID that you would really, really want to, you know, continue doing in your post, you know, with Decolonising DMU? So if I can ask Zara if there's anything.
I think, well, with some of the work that I'm doing, I want to bring up to, so for example, with the work I was talking about before, that we want to bring that up to be incorporated in actual modules, in actual classrooms. So that's something definitely want to continue, and doing things online as well. I think some things should stay online, just especially like when we're talking about the safe space and the deeper conversation before, to get those deeper thoughts and meanings. I think it's good to kind of continue how it's been going now, and it's because I feel like people are getting used to it as well. So sometimes I think there's no point in switching back to something that maybe wasn't quite working as well before. So yeah, that's what I kind of carry on.
So online to really facilitate and foster some of that depth. Richard, if I could ask you in terms of some of your work and the work of the project.
Mine really is the kind of, I suppose I sit here and I witness the ongoing wages of whiteness in this world, and I think that is really amplified during the pandemic. If we come back to your metaphor of the boat, but we see it all over the place in terms of whose bodies have access to privilege and power and whose do not. And I think it's kind of incumbent upon people like me to continue to kind of reinforce really some of the kind of a deeper nuanced kind of understanding of some of the work that Liam has been raising, that it also connects to some of the work that the Runnymede Trust has been doing as well, which is like really powerful and really important. But also that we kind of look at who is privileged and who has power, and also who is fragile in this world. And why is that the case then? Because universities are fundamental in, I guess, our creation of the world and our understanding of the world, but they also reproduce that world in particular ways, and they tend to look like me. And the people who look like me have led us to the brink of the precipice in all sorts of ways. And so I think it is incumbent on me, as that's been amplified during the pandemic, to do work to kind of refuse and push back against that.
Okay. So actually, we now have an opportunity to start to rethink and question some of those norms, and ultimately, if we're trying to create future leaders of tomorrow, I think, Richard, what you're saying is we can either stick to the where we are at the moment, and maybe expect change, or actually change the pool from which the resources that we're using, question those authorities, question some of the processes and the procedures, and taking Liam's project as an example, maybe create leaders of the future that have just a little bit more of peripheral vision, maybe a little bit more inputs to create better decisions. Okay, I'm going to ask Charmaine if there's anything from you from this same question.
Yeah, I think it's, for me, one of the most important thing is the events, and like Zara mentioned, like about Georgia, being able to have these conversations online have really broadened who we can have these conversations with, and who's able to show up as well. So I think really blending the two, so making sure that we do have those in-person events, but also continue the online events where it's a safer space for a lot of people to be online in the comfort of their own home and have some of the conversations that we do have. Because I think speaking about racism, it can be quite difficult to be open, and I think online platforms have really provided that for a lot of the students. And I think something else that I'd also want to continue is that the pandemic has really made us look at different ways to engage with students. So starting to look at social media, how we can use social media to advantage to really amplify the voice of the project and the work that we're doing. That's something definitely to move forward with for us as a project, and to keep using. And I think something that I've seen as well, especially in our team, is really checking up on the well-being of people and having those conversations that sometimes seem like it's just small talk, trying to get to the main agenda of the business. But those small conversations, just asking people, how you doing, are actually really, really important in starting those conversations, because I've realized that it's those small conversation that seem, those are small questions that might seem small, insignificant, that actually help people to open up and to begin to trust the project as well.
Okay, so there's a couple of key areas there. You talk about actually being able to use digital more to really communicate to those students, knowing that, you know, some of the events will be online as well as offline, and they may be able to engage more. So that's really key in coming across. And actually, you've talked about just checking in. You know, just checking in, just actually asking people how they are, and really trying to work out solutions. And I think that's probably a really, really good way of trying to wrap up this hour that's gone really, really quickly. We've had loads of insight. Thank you very much. We've had a couple of questions which have been fantastic, and some feedback. I wanted just to say a real thank you to everybody who's helped this hour go so quickly, and hopefully quite informative. So thank you to Charmaine, thank you to Zara, thank you to Richard, thank you to Liam, thank you to Samaya. And we've actually had a couple of people that have just typed in, where can we hear more? Where can we get involved with Decolonising DMU? Where can we maybe share some of our experiences, and where can we hear how to do things? And hopefully we'll put up sort of a website and also an email address where you can actually come and continue this conversation, because we are pretty confident that, you know, COVID will not be as big as it was, say, last year. But actually, as we look forward, we want to make sure that Decolonising DMU gets bigger, gets wider, that projects get heard, and more importantly, staff and students can see themselves more in this university. So from everybody from the Decolonising DMU project, and from everybody involved in the Teaching and Learning Conference, thank you so much for your time. Take care.